Captain Rylan had faced countless dangers in his life: asteroid storms, hostile raiders, and collapsing starships, but nothing prepared him for what he saw that day on the barren planet of Zera 7. The sky was a dull orange, dust swirling in heavy winds, and the wreckage of a small alien spacecraft smoldered in the middle of the desert. Smoke rose in black spirals, and the faint smell of burnt metal filled the air. Amid the twisted wreckage, a figure moved weakly. Ryland's sharp eyes caught the shimmer of soft blue skin and delicate glowing patterns along the alien's arms. She was small, frail, and clearly near death. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths, and her large eyes, so human-like in emotion, looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. Without a second thought, Ryland sprinted forward, ignoring the stinging wind and the sharp debris cutting at his boots. He dropped to his knees beside her, carefully checking her vitals. "Hey, you're going to be okay," he murmured. His voice was calm, but inside his heart pounded like a war drum. The alien princess tried to speak, but only a soft, gurgling sound came out. Ryland realized she had been poisoned. Her energy was fading fast, and every second mattered. He wrapped his arms around her fragile body and lifted her carefully. Despite her weight being surprisingly light, her trembling sent a shiver through him. "I've got you," he said firmly, feeling an unshakable determination settle in his chest. Rushing back to his ship, he ignored the protests of his crew. "Prepare the medbay now," he barked, not even glancing back at the smoldering wreck. The crew moved quickly, but Ryland felt like time had slowed, each second stretching endlessly as the alien princess struggled to breathe in his arms. Inside the medbay, the lights cast a soft glow on her pale blue skin. Ryland worked tirelessly, administering stabilizing serum and monitoring her vital signs. He had no manual for saving a Lyra, but he relied on the knowledge of anatomy, biology, and intuition. Every touch, every careful adjustment was deliberate. He could feel life clinging to her like a fragile flame, and he refused to let it go out. Hours passed. The silence of the ship was broken only by the hum of the medbay machinery and her faint, raspy breaths. Finally, slowly, she stirred. Her glowing eyes met his, full of fear, relief, and gratitude all at once. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. Ryland shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "No, I'm just doing what anyone should. No one deserves to die alone." The princess's lips curved into a fragile, shy smile. It was a small gesture, but it struck Ryland deeply. He had saved lives before, yes, but never had one life mattered so much in a quiet, personal way. She was a being from a world he had never imagined visiting. Yet right now her survival was his purpose, his mission, and his responsibility. By dawn, her condition stabilized. The venom in her veins had been neutralized and her breathing grew steady. She sat up slowly, wincing as her body adjusted to movement. "I owe you my life," she said softly, the words carrying more weight than any formal declaration could. Ryland nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't expected. "You don't owe me anything, just live." "That's enough." For a long moment they simply looked at each other. The princess's gratitude was quiet but sincere, and Ryland felt a strange connection, one that transcended words, species, or reason. He didn't yet understand the depth of it, but something told him their lives had become intertwined in a way that would echo far beyond this lonely planet. And somewhere in the vast, cold expanse of the galaxy, a story was beginning, one that would test the limits of trust, courage, and the human heart. The first night aboard the ship was quiet, almost painfully so. Captain Ryland couldn't sleep. The hum of the engines and the soft blinking of the medbay lights were the only sounds that filled the vast emptiness around them. He sat beside the bed where the alien princess, Alara, as she had whispered her name, rested, her fragile body wrapped in the soft blankets he had ordered for her. Alara's breathing was calm now, steady but still shallow. Her eyes, luminous in the dim light, opened slowly, and she turned her gaze toward Ryland. Though she did not speak in words he could understand, there was a clear expression of curiosity, fear, and something deeper, trust. Ryland reached out and gently held her hand. "I'm here," he said softly. "You're safe now." She gave a faint nod and let out a small sigh, as if the tension in her body had eased slightly. He could feel the tremor in her fingers and the heat of her soft skin against his palm. For a moment they just sat there, two beings from completely different worlds connected by a fragile thread of shared survival. The crew whispered about the unusual situation. Many had never seen Ryland so personal with someone in his care, but he ignored them. He had learned long ago that some moments, some lives, demanded more than duty. They demanded presence, attention, and compassion. Hours passed slowly, the ship drifting through the silent void. Alara began to speak in her soft, melodic tongue, and though Ryland could not understand the words, he listened intently. There was a sadness behind them, a story of loss and fear. He wondered how many worlds had suffered because the galaxy was often cruel to those too gentle to fight back. When she paused, he spoke. "I can't understand your words, but I hear your heart. And I promise, I will protect it." A faint smile touched her lips, small but genuine. It was a smile that carried relief, gratitude, and perhaps even the first spark of trust. Ryland's chest tightened. He had saved her life, yes, but he realized in that moment that what mattered most was not just saving a body, it was saving hope. Night turned slowly into the pale light of the ship's artificial morning. Alara stirred, attempting to sit upright, and Ryland was immediately at her side. "Easy," he said. "You're stronger than yesterday, but take it slow." She laughed quietly, a soft tinkling sound that warmed the cold metallic room. "I feel stronger," she said, her voice still weak but carrying a hint of life and determination. "You survived this far," Ryland replied, his voice steady. "You will survive everything else that comes." For a moment their eyes met and Ryland felt something shift. It was more than relief or duty, it was connection. A strange, unspoken understanding formed between them. He had no idea what the future held, no knowledge of the battles, choices, or sacrifices waiting ahead. But in that quiet room, in that first fragile morning, he knew one truth. Her life mattered, and he would not let anything take it from her. Alara's gaze softened. "You trust me," she said, her words simple yet filled with wonder. "I trust life itself," he replied, squeezing her hand gently. And in that small gesture, amid the hum of the ship and the vast emptiness of space outside, a bond began, one that would grow stronger with each challenge, each danger, and each moment of choice. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often cruel, but for the first time Ryland felt a flicker of warmth in the darkness. A promise had been made, not in words but in action. And somewhere deep in the quiet of the night, both human and alien knew that what began as a rescue would soon become something far greater, something that could change both their lives and perhaps even the fate of worlds. Days passed, and the alien princess Alara grew stronger. Each morning she rose with more energy, her steps steadier, her glowing skin regaining its usual soft radiance. Captain Ryland watched her closely, sometimes from a distance, sometimes right beside her, helping her adjust to life after the poison had nearly taken her. The ship's medbay became a place of quiet recovery, but also of discovery. Alara began to speak more, first in her melodic alien tongue, then slowly in basic English, which she had learned through some translator devices in her world. Ryland listened attentively, fascinated by her stories. She spoke of the Lyran Empire, a civilization of peace and beauty, now threatened by marauders who had destroyed many of their cities and ships. "You risked your life for me," she said one evening, as the stars streaked past the viewing window. Her blue eyes shone with gratitude mixed with a hint of disbelief. "I never imagined a human could care so much." Ryland shrugged, feeling a small warmth in his chest. "We're capable of kindness," he said simply. "Even across worlds." Alara's expression softened. "It is rare," she whispered. "Where I come from, life is often about survival. But you chose compassion." He looked at her, noticing the strength behind her vulnerability. She was a princess, yes, but also a being shaped by tragedy, who had seen her world crumble. And yet here she was, alive, standing in front of him, trusting him. Ryland felt a surge of responsibility, deeper than anything he had felt in all his years as a captain. Over the next few days, their bond grew stronger. They shared quiet moments, watching the stars, speaking about their homes and laughing at small, unexpected things. Alara had a subtle sense of humor, one that made Ryland smile in ways he hadn't in years. The crew noticed it too, whispering among themselves about how their captain, so often stoic and distant, now seemed lighter, more human somehow. Yet beneath the growing warmth, an unease lingered. One morning the ship's sensors picked up multiple ships approaching fast, shimmering silver against the darkness of space. Alara's face paled. "They've come for me," she whispered, clutching Ryland's arm. "My people. They've found me." Ryland's jaw tightened. "Relax," he said, though inside a wave of tension rolled through him. "We'll handle this." But when the ships drew closer, their purpose became clear. Small shuttles detached from the fleet, carrying Lyra, Alara's species. Ryland felt his heart beat faster. This was no ordinary rescue mission. More Lyra were coming, and from the way they looked at him, it was not just curiosity. They expected him to something. "They believe you are linked to them," Alara said softly, her hand pressing against his. "They think you are a mate, but I do not know if they are wrong." Ryland blinked, stunned. He had saved one life, and now the galaxy seemed to be presenting him with a challenge he had never imagined. His humanity, his instinct to protect, and his sense of duty, all of it would be tested. He realized slowly that this was not just about survival anymore. This was about trust, responsibility, and a bond that crossed species, worlds, and expectations. Alara looked up at him, her eyes shining with a quiet hope. "I trust you," she said. "I know. Only you can guide this." Ryland's hand tightened around hers. He had no answers yet, but he understood one thing clearly. He would protect her. And whatever came next, he would face it head on, guided by humanity's greatest strength, its ability to care, to hope, and to fight for life beyond reason. The approaching fleet cast long, silvery shadows across the ship. The galaxy felt suddenly larger, stranger, and full of unknown possibilities. But Ryland no longer felt fear. He felt purpose. And in that moment, amid the cold stars, he knew that saving Alara had not only changed her life, it had changed his as well. The hum of the ship's engines filled the quiet as Captain Ryland stared at the view screen. A fleet of silver ships moved gracefully through the darkness, their lights gleaming like stars caught in a web. Alara stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm, her expression a mix of fear and anticipation. "They are here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My people. They have found me." Ryland's jaw tightened. He had expected relief, perhaps gratitude from her civilization, but nothing had prepared him for what came next. Small shuttles began detaching from the fleet, gliding toward his ship with surprising speed. Each shuttle carried Lyra, beings similar to Alara, their skin shimmering softly in shades of blue, their glowing eyes wide with emotion. As the shuttles docked, the first group of Lyra stepped onto the deck. They were cautious, curious, but there was something else in their gaze. Expectation, hope, and a quiet reverence directed at him. Ryland felt a strange weight pressing down on him, heavier than any weapon or starship battle he had ever faced. "They call you their mate," Alara said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Some of them believe the bond we share extends beyond me." Ryland turned to her, trying to hide the uncertainty in his own heart. He had saved her life. That was true. But now others had arrived, believing that same bond connected them to him as well. He had no idea how to respond, yet he felt the pull of responsibility stronger than ever. The Lyra stepped closer, their movements graceful and careful. Each one looked at him with the same mixture of trust and vulnerability that Alara had shown on that first day. They had endured loss, fear, and danger, and now they were looking to him for guidance, for protection, for something beyond reason. Ryland took a deep breath. His mind raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. He remembered why he had risked everything to save Alara. Life mattered. Every being, every choice, every bond mattered. And if these others had come seeking hope, he could not turn them away lightly. Alara's hand found his again. "I trust you," she said quietly. "I know. You will choose what is right." Her words strengthened him. He realized then that this challenge, unexpected, complex, and overwhelming, was not a burden. It was a chance to show the best of humanity, to act not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of compassion and honor. The Lyra elders, stepping forward from the group, bowed slightly. Their voices, melodic and soft, carried across the deck. "We come for our princess, and for the one who saved her," one said. "We have heard of your deeds, human. We seek your guidance, your protection, and your truth." Ryland nodded slowly. He could feel the weight of their words pressing on him, but he also felt a spark of determination. He would not falter. He would not betray their trust. Listen to me, he said, his voice calm but strong. I saved one life because it was the right thing to do. I will not abandon the others who need help. But I will not claim what is not mine. Together, we will find a way forward. One that honors each of you and your lives. The Lyra murmured among themselves, their glowing eyes reflecting the flickering lights of the ship. Alara smiled faintly, her relief and trust shining through. She leaned closer to Rylan, her head brushing his shoulder. For the first time, he understood the true challenge ahead. It was not just survival or strategy, it was humanity itself. His choices, his compassion, his courage would be tested in ways he had never imagined. And as the stars streaked past the viewport, Rylan felt a strange calm settle over him. He had faced death countless times, but now he faced something far more profound. The responsibility to protect life, to honor trust, and to prove that humanity's greatest power was not in weapons or ships, but in the heart. The Lyra stood silently, waiting, and Rylan knew that whatever came next, he would not turn away. Because he had learned something simple yet powerful. To save life was to embrace it. All life. And in doing so, one could inspire hope across the galaxy. The ship was quiet now, but the tension was thick enough to feel in the air. Captain Rylan stood in the center of the deck, surrounded by Alara and the other Lyra who had come with her. Each one looked at him with a mixture of hope, fear, and expectation. Some were young, some older, but all carried the same silent message. They trusted him and they believed he had a bond with them. Rylan took a deep breath. He had saved one life, yes, but now he faced a new reality. These beings, each one a survivor, each one full of hope, had come seeking connection, guidance, and protection, and he couldn't turn them away. Not without breaking something essential, trust, life, or hope itself. Alara stepped closer, her hand finding his again. I believe in you, she said softly. I know you will choose what is right, not what is easy. Her words resonated deep in his chest. Rylan had never faced a challenge like this. In the past, battles were fought with weapons, with strategy, with courage. But this was different. It required empathy, understanding, and the strength to protect not just one life, but many, without losing his own sense of honor. The Lyra elders moved forward, their expressions calm yet expectant. We come to you with trust, one of them said in the universal translator's soft tone. You saved our princess. Now we ask you, will you guide us? Will you honor our bond? Rylan nodded slowly. I saved her because it was the right thing to do. I will not abandon the others who need help either. But understand this, I cannot claim something that is not mine. I will not lie and I will not deceive. I can protect you, guide you, and help you return home. But my choice will be fair and just for everyone. A hush fell over the group. The Lyra seemed to study him, sensing the truth in his words. He could feel the weight of their eyes on him, the silent hope and trust pressing like gravity. It was a responsibility heavier than any starship he had commanded, heavier than any battle he had fought. One of the younger Lyra spoke, her voice trembling slightly. We have lost so much. We need someone who will not abandon us. Can you be that person? Rylan looked around the deck at each one of them. Their vulnerability was clear, but so was their courage. They had survived attacks, poisons, and the void of space, and now they were placing their faith in him. He felt a stirring in his chest, a determination that went beyond duty. I can, he said firmly, but I will not make a choice that favors one over another unfairly. We will face this together. I will protect life, every life, because that is what is right. I will not turn away anyone who trusts me. Alara's hand tightened around his. She looked up at him, eyes shining with quiet pride. You are more than I imagined, she whispered. Rylan took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of the situation settle around him like the night sky. He had not only saved a life, he had inherited the responsibility to honor many. And in that moment, he understood something vital. Humanity's greatest strength was not in technology, not in weapons, but in its courage to care, to protect and to uphold life no matter how alien it might be. The Lyra murmured among themselves, some nodding, some closing their eyes in relief. Rylan felt a small surge of hope. The challenge was immense, yes, but it was one he could face not with fear, but with the unwavering strength of human heart. And in that quiet, tense moment on the ship's deck, Rylan realized that his journey had become more than survival. It had become a testament to humanity itself, a proof that courage, compassion, and honor could shine even across the vast, cold expanse of the galaxy. The stars outside glimmered like distant eyes, watching, waiting, and somehow understanding, and Captain Ryland knew deep in his soul that he would not fail, not for Alara, not for the Lyra, and not for the promise of life itself. The ship was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the engines and the soft glow of the bridge lights. Captain Ryland stood at the center, surrounded by Alara and the Lyra who had come with her. Their eyes were fixed on him, each pair filled with hope, trust, and uncertainty. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders, yet he stood tall, drawing strength from the moment itself. He had faced impossible odds in battle countless times, but this was different. This was not about strategy, tactics, or firepower. It was about hearts, lives, and choices. One wrong word, one wrong gesture, and the fragile trust placed in him could shatter. He looked at Alara, her luminous eyes meeting his, and felt the bond they shared, small but undeniable. She had trusted him when she was near death, and now she waited silently, letting him guide the path forward. Ryland turned to the other Lyra. Each one had suffered, each one had lost, and each one had risked everything to follow him. He could see their fear, their hope, and their quiet pleading. How could he honor all of them without favoritism, without betrayal? The question pressed into him heavy as gravity. Finally, he drew a deep breath and spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I saved one life," he began, "because it was right. But life is not only about survival. It is about respect, trust, and freedom. I cannot choose one over another if it means denying anyone hope, care, or protection. I will not abandon any of you." A hush fell over the deck. Alara's hand found his again, her touch steadying him as much as he steadied her. "I trust you," she whispered. "I will guide all of you," he continued. "We will face the dangers together. We will protect each other. No one will be left behind, and no one will be forced into a choice they do not wish. This is how it will be." The Lyra looked at one another, then back at him, their glowing eyes reflecting the lights of the ship. Slowly, understanding dawned. They had expected a choice, a declaration, a claim. But Ryland offered something more, something rare and profound. He offered trust, fairness, and the courage to protect life for all equally. One of the elders stepped forward. "You are not like anyone we have met," she said softly. "You do not act out of possession, pride, or desire. You act out of life itself," Ryland nodded. "Life is precious no matter whose it is, and the greatest gift we can give is protection, guidance, and the chance to live freely." Alara smiled faintly, tears shimmering in her eyes. "You are everything I never imagined," she said, voice trembling with emotion. Ryland felt warmth spread through him. It was not just relief. It was purpose, clarity, and the quiet joy of knowing that he had chosen the right path. Humanity's strength had never been measured in weapons, armies, or stars conquered. It had always been measured in courage, compassion, and the willingness to fight for life, even when the odds were against them. The Lyra murmured among themselves, some smiling, some bowing in respect, all seeming to recognize the truth in his words. They would follow him, not because he claimed them, but because he had earned their trust with action and heart. As the ship lifted from orbit, carrying humans and Lyra alike, Ryland stood at the helm. Alara leaned against him, her hand in his, and around them a fragile but growing community began to form. They laughed, shared stories, and began to heal from the long days of fear and uncertainty. For Ryland, the choice had been simple in principle, though impossible in practice: protect life, honor trust, and act with courage. And in doing so, he had not only saved a princess, but had inspired hope across an entire species. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, but for the first time, Ryland felt that humanity's greatest power, the human heart, was more than enough to face the galaxy. The ship glided through the endless black of space, carrying a crew unlike any other in the galaxy. Humans and Lyra stood side by side, united not by force or conquest, but by trust, hope, and survival. Captain Ryland stood at the helm, watching the stars streak past, his hand brushing lightly against Alara's. She leaned against him, quiet but strong, her luminous eyes reflecting the constellations beyond the viewport. Life aboard the ship had settled into a rhythm. The Lyra learned quickly, adapting to human routines while sharing their own knowledge, their stories, and their wisdom. Laughter began to echo through the corridors, replacing the fear and uncertainty that had once filled the silence. Even the youngest Lyra, who had barely survived the marauder attacks, now ran freely through the decks, her glowing skin shimmering in the soft light. Rylan felt a deep, steady warmth in his chest. He had faced countless battles in his life, but none had been as profound as this. Protecting life, guiding the lost, and honoring trust. This was his greatest victory. And it was not a victory claimed through weapons or strategy, but through humanity itself. Alara stepped beside him, her hand slipping into his. "You've given us more than protection," she said softly. "You've given us hope and a chance to live without fear. You've reminded us that life matters, no matter the species, no matter the planet." Rylan looked down at her, feeling the weight and beauty of her words. "I didn't do this alone," he replied. "We are all in this together. You survived because you fought, and I helped. The same goes for the others. Strength comes from more than one person. It comes from standing together." A soft hum came from the bridge speakers, alerting them to the proximity of a nearby star system. Beyond the viewport, distant planets glimmered, waiting to be explored, healed, and remembered. Rylan realized that this journey was far from over. There would be challenges, dangers, and difficult choices ahead. But for the first time he felt certain of one thing. Humanity's greatest strength was not weapons, not ships, but the courage to care, to protect, and to inspire hope across the stars. The Lyra gathered around him, their glowing eyes full of gratitude and trust. Each one had come believing in a bond they thought existed, but Rylan had shown them a truth far deeper, that life itself deserved protection, and that compassion could transcend worlds. Alara's gaze met his, and he saw the same quiet pride and affection he had felt from the moment he saved her life. "You could have chosen just one of us," Alara said, her voice almost trembling. "But you chose all of us." Rylan smiled, a rare, gentle smile, "Because each of you is worth it. Each life matters, and sometimes doing the right thing is harder than any battle, but it is worth it." The crew laughed softly, sharing stories, passing moments of joy and trust among themselves. For the first time in months, there was no fear, no despair, only life, vibrant and fragile, glowing brighter than any star outside the ship. As the ship sailed further into the galaxy, Captain Rylan knew this was the beginning of something extraordinary. He had saved a princess, yes, but he had done more than that. He had shown that humanity at its best could unite worlds, inspire hope, and protect life, no matter how alien it might seem. And in the quiet of the bridge, surrounded by humans and Lyra, he understood the truth that had guided him all along. The greatest power in the universe was not strength, speed, or technology. It was the human heart. Together, they would face the unknown, heal the broken, and carve a future where life, trust, and courage mattered above all else. And somewhere in the silent expanse of space, a legend began to grow. A story of a man who dared to care, who dared to protect, and who reminded the galaxy that humanity's greatest gift was its ability to love, even across worlds. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and for the first time, Captain Rylan felt at peace. He had saved a life, built trust, and started something that would shine across the galaxy, a new beginning, born from courage, compassion, and the strength of the human heart.